Now in Module 16, we're going to talk about volume of different 3D figures, and the two we're going to talk about in this video is prisms and cylinders. So to begin with, we know that the volume is the number of cubic units inside a figure that makes up that figure. And if we have two congruent volumes, that means that we have two polyhedra that are congruent and they have the exact same volume. So sometimes that's going to come up. For composite figures, make sure you put a little star by that, is if we have two shapes that are connected together, then we're going to find the sum of the volumes and add them up together. If we need a hole, so if there's a hole in our solid, then we're going to need to subtract out the volume of the piece that's missing. So sometimes that will show up as well. To find the volume of a prism, so here's our first one for this set of notes, we are going to take the area of the base times the height of the prism. And this is the exact formula that shows up on your formula chart that you're going to use for your test. And if you notice, all of the faces or all the sides of this figure, so front, back, side, top, and bottom, are all rectangles. And because of that, when we find the area of our base, it's going to be a rectangle. Not all figures are going to have the base this shape. So they could be a square, it could be a triangle, trapezoid. There are lots of different shapes that your prism could be. So for the volume of a cylinder, that's our next formula, is the exact same one. But remember that the capital B is going to stand for the area of the base. So that's why we would end up using the same. It's just the shape of your base is different. So your shape of your base here is pi r squared because it's a circle. And then the height is always going to be the perpendicular distance between the bases. So your bases need to be parallel to each other. Just keep that in mind. So if you're trying to figure out which shape is your base, you want to look for the sides that are parallel to each other. What I did to start working on number one is I broke it down so we can figure out what type of shape do we have. So first off, I want you to circle if this is a prism or a cylinder. So notice that your prism has edges to it. The cylinder is basically like a Coke can. So a prism is what we've got in this one. The shape of our base, remember we are looking for the bases that are parallel to each other, and that would be our trapezoid. The volume formula, because it is a prism, is going to be capital B times our H. Now for a trapezoid, we need to remember that that is 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height to find the area of that shape. So when we need to find the area of this base, we need those different measurements. So our two bases would be our 6, and we need this opposite side, but remember this top one is the exact same shape. So one of the bases is 6, the other one is 14 for my trapezoid. The height of my trapezoid is not the 5, the distance between the two faces. We have to just look at one trapezoid, and this 3 is the height of the trapezoid itself. When we simplify this, we've got 6 plus 14 is 20. Then I can take half of 20 and get 10 times my 3, so we get 30 for the area of our base. And we're going to use that when we take that and plug it back into our formula. For the height of the prism, this is the 5 that I was talking about over here. So it's the distance between your bases, so connecting the bases together. When we get to the volume, now we need to take the area of our base and multiply it by our height. So that's why we broke this all up. So we've got the 30 for the B. Our height is 5, and if we multiply that, we get 150. Units would be centimeters, and this is cubed because it is volume now that we're dealing with. On number 2, we're going to start out the same way, and we need to determine if this is a prism or a cylinder. And since this is the shape of a Coke can, maybe a little flattened, this is a cylinder. So the shape of our base is a circle. And our volume formula will stay capital B times H since they end up being the same. So the area of our base, since we know it is a circle, we need to use pi r squared. And our radius in our base, if you look at, we've got two bases, remember, that our radius is this 9 feet. So when we multiply that, that gives us an 81 pi, and I'm going to leave it like that just to make it easier when we multiply things at the end. For the height, remember the height is always the distance between our two different bases. So that would be our 6. And now if we multiply those together, we're taking 81 pi times 6, and we get 486 pi, or if we round that so it's not exact, we would get 1526 0.814, and that would be feet cubed again since we have volume. So remember, when you look at your shapes, you want to first determine what shape are you dealing with, and then look at what formula it is, and then break down the different letters within your formula. If you've got a capital B or an H or some other shapes, you're going to have some different variables there that you need to look for those areas first.